On Christmas Eve, surrounded by my brothers, sisters, and their children, I finally handed my father the custom watch I had been saving up for all year. He opened the box, grinned, and said loudly so everyone could hear, "Is this cheap trinket supposed to impress me? Looks like you're still as useless as ever." My stepbrother burst into laughter, my mom pretended not to notice, and I just whispered, "Merry Christmas," and walked away. A year later, he called me again and again, 27 calls each day. He realized what I had really done. Christmas has always been a performance at my dad's house, and not the good kind. Every year, it's the same show. My dad, Richard, sitting in his oversized chair, commanding attention with his loud voice, his louder opinions, and his need to turn everything into a stage for his ego. If he hears laughter from another room, he has to drag the spotlight back to himself, usually with some forced joke or a story nobody asked for. But this year, I thought it might be different. I was wrong. I'd spent nearly a year saving up for something special for him, a custom-made watch. Not flashy, but elegant, with a small engraving on the inside. Strength is in understanding, not in shouting. It was something he used to say when I was a kid, back when I still believed he meant it. Back when I thought his harsh words were meant to make me stronger, not smaller. I wasn't trying to buy his approval. I don't know. Maybe I thought if I gave him something meaningful, he'd finally see me as more than just his quiet, awkward son. Maybe for once I'd get more than just his usual criticism. The house was chaos as usual. My mom, Linda, was pretending to be busy in the kitchen, her classic escape. My sister Jessica was trying to keep her kids from knocking over the decorations, and my stepbrother Trevor was already on his second beer, making those snide little comments under his breath that always seemed to land just on the edge of being hurtful. I spent most of the afternoon trying not to think too hard about the watch, which was tucked in my bag. I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it. I'd just hand it to him, say, "Merry Christmas," and that would be it. No expectations. Or at least that's what I told myself. Finally, when most of the gifts were unwrapped, I pulled out the small, simple box. I walked over to Dad, who was half watching the muted football game, half holding court with his usual one-man show. I cleared my throat. "Hey, Dad. This is for you." He looked up, but not at me. His eyes flicked to Trevor first, like he was waiting for the punchline. Jessica glanced over too, a mix of curiosity and caution on her face. I handed him the box, and for just a second, I saw something like surprise in his expression. But then it was gone. He opened the box, pulled out the watch, turned it over in his hand, and then he laughed. Not a warm laugh. Not a grateful laugh. It was that short, sharp, cutting laugh that always made me feel about 2 inches tall. "Is this supposed to impress me?" he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This cheap little thing? You still don't get it, do you? After all these years?" The room went quiet. My face burned. I could feel that familiar tightness in my chest, the kind I used to get as a kid when I'd messed something up in front of him. Jessica looked down, pretending not to hear. Trevor snickered, not even trying to hide it. And Mom? She just quietly slipped back into the kitchen, abandoning me to the fallout. "Just Merry Christmas, Dad," I muttered, trying to keep my voice steady. But I knew he heard the crack in it. "Seriously, Edgar? You think this is going to change anything? A watch? You think buying me something makes you worth something?" Trevor chuckled again. I didn't even look at him. I could already picture that smug grin on his face, the one he always wore when Dad was in his element. I didn't say anything else. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I was afraid of what might come out, a stutter, a plea, maybe even tears. So I did the only thing I could do. I turned, grabbed my coat, and walked out. I didn't care about the looks. I didn't care about the whispers. I just needed to get out of that suffocating house. Outside, the cold air hit me like a slap. I stumbled to my car, got in, and just sat there, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My chest felt like it was about to explode, but I wouldn't cry. Not for him. Not again. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica, "Sorry." That was it. No, he was out of line. No, "Are you okay?" Just, "Sorry." Classic Jessica, always avoiding the conflict, always trying to smooth things over without actually fixing anything. I stared at the text until my vision blurred. Sorry. That's what I was supposed to be, wasn't it? Sorry for existing. Sorry for not being what he wanted. Sorry for trying. But not this time. I started my car, but I didn't drive home. I just drove. No destination in mind, just letting the cold, dark streets blur by, the headlights streaking like ghosts in the rain. I wasn't sad. Not really. I was angry. No, more than angry, furious. And not just at him. At myself. At all of them. At the way they always let him get away with it. The way I always let him get away with it. Eventually, I pulled into an empty parking lot, killed the engine, and just sat there in the dark. The only sound was my own breathing, ragged and uneven. I grabbed my phone, opened the Notes app, and without even thinking, I started typing. Stop letting him control every family gathering. Stop reacting. No more letting him get a rise out of me. Figure out how the family money works. Who actually has control? Talk to Jessica. See if she's tired of this too. It wasn't much. Just a list. Just words. But it felt like something. Plan. A start. Because I was done being his punching bag. Done letting his words cut me like knives. If he wanted to be the center of everything, fine. I'd show him what it felt like to be left out. I drove home eventually, but I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, the words from his cruel laugh still echoing in my mind. You think this makes you worth something? The next morning I didn't text him. I didn't call. But I didn't forget either. I was done trying to earn his respect. Done trying to make him proud. If he wanted a fight, he'd get one. And I wasn't going to lose. Not this time. Not ever again. I didn't talk to my dad after that Christmas. Not on New Year's, not in the days that followed. Part of me expected the usual, a flood of passive-aggressive texts, some half-hearted attempt to guilt me into making things right. But there was nothing, just silence. And maybe that's what scared me the most. Silence meant he was planning something. Richard never just let things go. But I didn't waste time worrying about it. I had a plan. Or at least I was making one. I wasn't just going to be another one of his little puppets, dancing around his moods. If he wanted to be the king of the family, fine. He could sit on his empty throne. The first thing I did was reach out to Jessica. I didn't make it a big deal. Just sent a text. Hey, do you actually enjoy Christmas over there? Or do you just go because it's easier? She took forever to reply. 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, came back. Finally, she answered, honestly, it's just less drama. But sometimes I wish we could just meet somewhere else. I stared at her message, feeling this strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I wasn't alone. Anger because we'd all let him get away with this for so long. But that was going to change. Next, I messaged Melissa, our cousin. If anyone had the guts to speak her mind, it was her. I didn't even sugarcoat it. Just told her what happened. How Dad humiliated me in front of everyone. How nobody said a word. Her reply was instant. Classic Uncle Richard. Why do we keep putting up with him? I didn't have a good answer, but it gave me an idea. What if we don't? I texted back. What if we did New Year's at my place? No drama. Just good food and no walking on eggshells. Melissa was in immediately. Absolutely. Less driving, more fun. Jessica hesitated, of course. I don't want to upset Mom, but I reassured her. We'll just say it's easier for the kids. No pressure. Eventually, she agreed. And that's when I knew I had a chance. I wasn't just standing up for myself. I was giving them a way out too. I texted Mom next. Hey, I thought I'd host for New Year's this time. Give you a break. She sent a thumbs up. Classic Linda, always avoiding conflict, never wanting to be the one to say no, but happy enough to quietly step away. New Year's came, and for the first time in forever, I didn't feel that knot of dread in my stomach. The kids were laughing, running around without anyone barking at them to keep it down. Jessica actually smiled. Melissa brought her homemade cupcakes, which were a hit. And Mom? She looked relaxed. Really relaxed. We laughed. We ate. Nobody was walking on eggshells. Nobody was waiting for the next cruel comment, the next loud outburst. It was nice, but it didn't take long for Richard to notice. About halfway through the night, I posted a picture of the kids playing on the family group chat. Just a casual shot, all smiles. I didn't think much of it. But a few minutes later, Richard's message popped up. So what's the plan for next weekend? Nobody answered. Jessica sent a quick thumbs up, and Melissa just posted a gif of someone shrugging. I could feel my pulse quicken, half expecting the usual explosion. But nothing came, at least not at first. A few days later, I got a call. Richard didn't bother with pleasantries. "I heard you're trying to split up the family," he snapped. "You think you're better than me now?" I kept my voice calm. "Why does it matter where we celebrate? We had a great time." "It's tradition," he barked. "Tradition isn't a law, Dad." He hung up. No surprise there. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next day, Trevor texted me, "So you think you can just cut Dad out?" I didn't respond. I didn't owe him an explanation. If he wanted to stay under Dad's thumb, that was his choice. But he wasn't going to drag me back down. Richard tried again, this time in the family group chat. He started sending those cringy family loyalty memes. The kind with those weird fonts about how real families stick together, and disrespecting your parents is the worst sin. Trevor loved it, reacting with tears of joy to every single one. But the others? Silence. I watched as the group chat slowly died. Jessica stopped replying. Melissa started her own private chat with me and a few of the other cousins. Even Mom stopped reacting with her usual red heart and thumbs up. It was a quiet rebellion. No arguments, no dramatic speeches. Just distance. But Richard wasn't done. He started calling me almost every day. Sometimes he'd leave these long, rambling voicemails, talking about how I was tearing the family apart, how I was ungrateful, how I'd regret this. I didn't listen to most of them. I didn't need to. I knew what they would say. I knew because he'd been saying the same things my whole life. But I wasn't the same. Not anymore. Then one night, Trevor showed up at my door. I could see it in his eyes, that mix of anger and confusion. He wanted to be mad, but he didn't really understand why. "You're ruining everything, you know that?" he snapped, leaning against my doorframe like he owned the place. "I'm not ruining anything," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm just not letting him control me anymore." "Control?" He scoffed. "He's our dad, Edgar. Family sticks together. Family doesn't mean letting someone hurt you over and over," I shot back. "If you want to keep pretending everything's fine, go ahead. But I'm done." He stared at me for a long moment, that smug confidence slowly melting into something else, something like doubt. He muttered something I didn't catch and stormed off. I closed the door, my heart pounding, but I didn't regret a word. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't ashamed. And I wasn't alone. Jessica texted me later that night, "I'm proud of you." Melissa sent a thumbs up. Even Mom, in her own quiet way, started showing up more, dropping off leftovers, asking how I was doing without bringing up Dad. I wasn't just taking my life back. I was giving them the courage to do the same. But Richard? He wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And I knew he'd try to fight his way back in. But for the first time, I wasn't the one running. I was ready. I knew my dad, Richard, wasn't going to take this quietly. Letting go of control wasn't in his DNA. But I didn't expect him to get this desperate. It started with the calls. At first, they were just the usual, long, rambling voicemails about family values, about how I was tearing the family apart. He'd start off angry, then try to sound hurt, then back to anger again. It was a script I'd heard 100 times, but it didn't work on me anymore. Then he moved on to the group chats. Suddenly, there were 3 new ones. One for the whole family, one just for the kids, and another that seemed to include every distant relative he could think of. In each one, he was the loudest voice, posting old photos, making comments about family traditions and respect. Most people stayed silent. A few left. But I noticed something: the real conversations were happening without him. Jessica and I started a new chat with Melissa and a few other cousins, and soon it was the only one that mattered. We shared funny stories, planned casual get-togethers, all without the tension of Dad's constant need to be the center of attention. But Richard wasn't stupid. He could see what was happening, and it drove him mad. His calls became more frequent, more desperate. And when I didn't answer, he started messaging Jessica, trying to turn her against me. "You know Edgar's just trying to take over, right? Don't let him turn you against your father." Jessica told me, of course. She wasn't the same scared little girl who used to freeze up whenever Dad yelled. I guess watching me stand up to him had given her a bit of courage too. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about breaking the cycle, giving the family a way out of his shadow. But I knew I couldn't stop there. Not if I wanted this to last. So I started digging into something I'd always avoided: the family trust. Richard had always controlled it, but I never really knew the details. It was something my grandma had set up ages ago, a little bit of money meant for family emergencies or special occasions. But over the years it had turned into another way for Dad to hold power over everyone. He decided how it was spent and he never let anyone forget it. But I wasn't a kid anymore. I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I sat down with Jessica and Melissa and asked them what they knew. Not much, as it turned out, just that Dad had always been the one in charge. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went to the courthouse and requested a copy of the trust documents. I expected a maze of legal jargon, but it was actually pretty straightforward. The trust could be changed with a majority vote from the direct descendants. 3 signatures. That's all it took. I sent screenshots of the document to Jessica and Melissa. Jessica was hesitant. Isn't this a bit much? I don't want to make it ugly. It doesn't have to be ugly, I told her. But it needs to be fair. He's been using this to control us for years. This is our chance to make it right. Melissa was all in. About time someone did something. A week later, we met at a notary's office and signed the paperwork. No drama, no big scene. Just quiet, determined signatures. We transferred control of the trust to a neutral third party, someone who would actually manage it responsibly, not use it as a tool for manipulation. Richard found out almost immediately. I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me was how fast he lost it. Texts started flooding my phone. You're making a mistake. You don't even know what you're doing. You're letting everyone down. I didn't reply. He called Jessica, screamed at her, told her she was betraying the family. She called me in tears, but I calmed her down. This isn't about revenge, Jess. It's about not letting him use money to control us anymore. He wasn't just angry. He was panicking. Because this was the one thing he never thought he'd lose, the power to decide to hold the purse strings. But his desperation didn't stop there. He tried to turn Trevor against me, which was no surprise. Trevor had always been his little shadow, his golden boy. I knew there'd be a confrontation, and I was right. It happened at a family brunch, the kind Dad used to host, but this time at Jessica's place. I showed up a little late and Trevor was waiting by the door. He didn't even try to hide his anger. You think you're some big shot now, huh? He snapped. Messing with Dad like this? Messing with him? I shot back. We're just not letting him run our lives anymore. Run our lives? He stepped closer, trying to loom over me. You're the one ruining everything. You're tearing this family apart. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. You mean I'm not letting him tear me apart anymore? That did it. He shoved me. I stumbled back but didn't fall. He tried to shove me again, but this time I pushed back. Hard. For a second I thought he might swing at me. But then Jessica stepped between us, yelling at us to knock it off. Trevor stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I stood there, catching my breath, and realized something. I wasn't scared. Not of Trevor. Not of Dad. Not anymore. But Richard wasn't done. Not even close. He went from anger to pity. He started calling other relatives, spinning this sob story about how his kids were turning against him, how I was trying to steal the family. Some believed him, at least for a while. I got a call from my Aunt Deborah, who tried to gently tell me to make peace. I didn't take the bait. We're not doing family dinners at his place anymore. That's all. But the real kicker came a few weeks later. Richard tried to throw one of his classic Sunday lunches, the big, over-the-top kind with way too much food, where he'd sit at the head of the table, barking orders and telling the same old stories. Only this time, nobody showed up. Not Jessica. Not Melissa. Not even Mom. Trevor was there, of course. His loyal little echo. But that was it. Richard called me after. Left a voicemail, his voice low and shaking with anger. You think you've won? You think you can just tear this family apart? You're nothing without me. But that's where he was wrong. I wasn't nothing. I was free. And I knew, finally, truly knew, that I didn't need his approval. I didn't need his permission to be part of my own family. I had taken away his control. Not just over me, but over all of them. And he had nothing left but his own empty, bitter pride. I thought taking control of the trust would be the end of it. I thought once Richard realized he couldn't use money as a leash, he'd back off. Maybe even sulk for a while and then go back to pretending everything was fine. But I underestimated him. Or maybe I just underestimated how much control meant to him. Because that's when the real chaos started. He didn't just stop at angry voicemails or passive-aggressive group chats. No, Richard escalated. I started getting calls at all hours, not just from him, but from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Edgar, what's going on with your father? He says you're trying to take over the family. Your dad says you've banned him from family events. That's not true, is it? I told them the truth. I hadn't banned anyone. We just weren't doing things his way anymore. Some of them got it. Others just mumbled that family should stick together and hung up. But it didn't stop there. He even started showing up at places I never expected. My cousin's kid's soccer game, a place he'd never set foot in before. Suddenly Richard was there, shaking hands, laughing too loudly, trying to look like the doting grandpa he never was. And every now and then, his eyes would flick to me, like he was daring me to make a scene. I didn't. I just stayed with Melissa, watching the game, talking about anything but him. But I knew what he was doing. He was trying to spin a narrative, trying to show everyone that he was still the family man, and I was the bitter, rebellious son. And then there was Trevor. Always his loyal shadow, Trevor didn't waste any time. He flooded my messages with guilt trips. You're ruining everything. Dad's a wreck because of you. This is all on you, Edgar. I ignored most of them. But then he showed up at my door one night. His eyes wild and his voice already loud before I even got it halfway open. Hope you're happy, man, he spat, shoving his way inside. Dad's a mess. He's drinking every night, and it's all because of you. I didn't move, didn't let him push me around this time. No, Trevor, it's because of him. Because he can't handle not being in control. You think you're some kind of hero? He sneered, getting in my face. You think you're fixing anything? You're just tearing this family apart. No, I'm giving everyone a chance to actually breathe without his voice drowning us out. I shot back. But you can keep pretending it's all fine if you want. Go back to being his little shadow. He swung at me. I dodged and he stumbled forward. I didn't hit him. I didn't need to. Get out, Trevor. Go back and tell him whatever you want. I don't care anymore. He cursed, kicked the doorframe on his way out, and I heard his car roar away into the night. But I didn't feel the usual anxiety, the crushing guilt that always followed our fights. I just felt tired. Mom started coming by more after that. Quiet visits where she'd bring over a casserole or some cookies. Always pretending she just happened to be in the neighborhood. She never talked about Dad. And I didn't bring him up. We had an unspoken agreement. This was neutral ground. A place where I didn't have to defend myself or explain why I was done being his punching bag. Jessica was the same. She'd text, ask about my week, send me pictures of her kids, but she never asked me to fix things. I think she finally understood that it wasn't something I could fix, not without giving up everything I'd gained. Richard didn't stop, though. If anything, his desperation grew. He tried calling me from different numbers, leaving voicemails that swung wildly between rage and self-pity. One day, he'd be yelling about how I'd betrayed the family. The next, he'd be pleading for a second chance. But I didn't answer. I didn't respond. Then came the night he showed up at my door. It was late. Too late for a just dropping by visit. I heard the knocking, loud and relentless, and when I opened the door, there he was, looking smaller than I remembered, but angrier than ever. Are you going to let me in? Or what? He snapped, trying to push past me. I stepped in his way. You can talk from here. After everything I've done for you, he spat. This is how you treat me? I'm your father. No, you're just a man who's used father as an excuse to control everyone around him. His face twisted, his fists clenched. You think you're so smart. You think you've won? You're going to regret this. I already regret every time I let you make me feel like I was worthless. I shot back. But that's done now. He stood there for a long moment, his chest heaving, his face a mask of rage. Then he turned and stormed off, slamming the gate so hard it shook. That was the last time I saw him. Oh, he still tried. He kept calling, leaving those long, rambling voicemails, but they started to fade over time. A few weeks later, they stopped completely. I heard from Melissa that he was telling people I was going through something, trying to paint himself as the concerned father. But the rest of the family? They didn't buy it. Jessica was done playing peacekeeper. Melissa was done pretending he was the wise elder. Even Mom, in her quiet way, started spending more time with me, less with him. And for the first time, I felt free. I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't waiting for the next cruel comment. I wasn't trying to earn his approval. I was just living. Laughing with my sister. Sharing dumb memes with Melissa. Eating mom's casserole without the background tension of a looming argument. But the best part? It wasn't just me. The whole family felt lighter. More relaxed. And I didn't need to force it. It just happened. A few weeks later, I got one last voicemail from him. His voice was quiet, almost defeated. You know what, Edgar? You win. I hope you're happy. I listened to it twice, not out of guilt, but because it felt surreal. He finally got it. He couldn't control me. Couldn't control any of us. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I just smiled, deleted the message, and went back to my day. Sometimes I think about him, sitting alone in that big, empty house, still trying to figure out what went wrong. But most of the time, I don't think about him at all. And I'm okay with that. I'm finally okay.